They told you love would heal you, that one day someone would come along, soft, pure, understanding, and wrap their arms around your wounds like salvation. Since childhood, you've been fed this fantasy, in songs and stories, in every whispered promise of happily ever after. And you believed it, not because you were weak, but because you were never taught how to face your emptiness without needing someone else to fill it. But what if the truth is this? Love was never meant to save you. What if the version of love you were sold was designed to keep you obedient? A man chasing a dream, not building a life. Nietzsche saw it clearly. He didn't romanticize the human experience. He exposed it. He saw that most men don't fall in love with women. They fall in love with how women make them feel about themselves. It's not her you worship. It's your reflection in her eyes. Her validation becomes your self-worth. Her affection becomes your oxygen. And when she pulls away, you don't mourn her. You mourn the version of yourself she mirrored back to you. This isn't love. It's dependency wrapped in poetry. And until you wake up from that illusion, you will keep handing over your power in exchange for emotional comfort. You'll call it devotion, but it's just fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of facing the parts of yourself you've buried under the hope that someone else will rescue you from them. Real love doesn't rescue, it reflects. And if you're still expecting someone to come and fix what's broken inside you, you're not ready to love. You're just looking for anesthesia. So here's the real question. What would happen if you stopped waiting to be saved? What would you become if you turned your gaze inward and finally met yourself? Comment below. Have you ever confused emotional validation for love? Let's have the conversation most people are too afraid to start, because on the other side of the illusion is liberation. You call her manipulative, but have you ever asked why she had to be strategic in the first place? Before you rush to judge her silence, her careful words, her unreadable expression, understand this. She didn't choose strategy because she's cruel. She chose it because the world never handed her power directly. While men were raised to confront with force, women were trained to influence through subtlety, not by choice, but by necessity. Society didn't give her swords, so she learned to use shadows. It didn't hand her control, so she mastered persuasion. What looks like manipulation to you is often emotional survival. From childhood, she learned that softness opens doors, that being likable is safer than being loud. She didn't fake innocence. She weaponized it because that's what the world responded to. Her tenderness is not just emotion, it's a mirror, reflecting exactly what you want to see. And maybe that's what hurts the most. She didn't lie to you. She simply became the version of herself that the world rewards. While you were speaking from your heart, she was listening from her instincts, reading your tone, mapping your emotional needs, calculating her place in your life. Not because she wanted to play you, but because she couldn't afford to be played. This is not about blaming women. This is about understanding how women have been shaped by centuries of invisibility. And when they move through love strategically, it's not malice. It's intelligence evolved from survival. So instead of asking, why is she so calculated? Ask, what kind of world taught her she had to be? And here's the twist. You weren't her victim. You were her mirror. You saw what you wanted to see, not who she really was. She became what you needed her to be to gain your trust. And the moment she pulled away, the illusion shattered. But can you blame her for surviving a game she never created? Comment below. Have you ever mistaken a woman's strategy for manipulation? Have you ever seen love through the lens of your own projections? Let's talk about it. Because the truth doesn't wound, it awakens. Here's the truth you've been avoiding. You didn't love her. Not really. You loved the way she made you feel. Powerful, wanted, significant. She didn't heal you. She didn't complete you. But for a while, she made you believe you were whole. And that illusion was more addictive than love itself. You saw her as your light, your home, your savior. But what if she was only a mirror, reflecting back your best self, your imagined self, your fantasy of who you wish you were, that feeling of invincibility you felt in her presence? It wasn't about her. It was about how you felt being seen through her eyes. And that's why losing her didn't just hurt, it shattered you. Because when she left, it wasn't just her absence you mourned. It was the disappearance of the version of you that only existed through her validation. This is the trap. You weren't in love. You were in projection. You handed her your self-worth and called it intimacy. And when she stopped feeding it, when her gaze turned neutral, when her compliments quieted, when her approval faded, you panicked. Not because she changed, but because the reflection you depended on vanished. That ache in your chest wasn't heartbreak. It was identity collapse. The pain you felt wasn't from love lost. It was from no longer knowing who you are without her belief in you. This isn't weakness. This is conditioning. You were raised to think love would save you, that the right woman would fix what you refuse to face on your own. But she's not your mother. She's not your therapist. And she's not your mirror. She's a person with her own wounds, her own dreams, her own complexities. And the moment you stop needing her to validate you, you can finally meet her. Not as your savior, but as your equal. Ask yourself, were you really in love with her? Or were you in love with how she made you feel about yourself? Let's talk about it in the comments. Someone needs this clarity. Maybe it's you. Men say they want honesty from women. They say, tell me how you really feel. Be real with me. I can handle it. But the moment she opens her mouth and speaks her unfiltered truth, the moment she stops protecting your ego, the illusion shatters. Because most men don't actually want the truth. They want reassurance. They want their version of the truth, packaged neatly in affection, softness, and approval. You say you want her to be honest, but only if it still makes you feel like the man. The moment her words carry weight, critique, disappointment, you flinch, you shut down, you pull away. Not because she's cruel, but because she's no longer playing the part. You asked her, what's wrong? She said nothing, and you accepted it. Not because you believed her, but because it was easier than confronting the storm. You sensed her silence, her disconnection, but you didn't dig deeper. Why? Because you didn't want to hear that you've become emotionally unavailable, that she feels unseen, that she no longer trusts you with her inner world, that your presence isn't presence anymore. It's routine. Her truth threatens the story you tell yourself, that you're a good man, that you're doing your best, that everything is fine. But real honesty doesn't come dressed in comfort. It comes with discomfort, with inconvenient truths, with emotions that don't stroke your pride. If you truly want a woman's truth, you must first build the emotional strength to receive it, without defensiveness, without withdrawal. Otherwise, you're not asking for truth. You're asking for performance. What if she's been censoring herself for years, afraid to lose the version of you that only exists when she's silent? What if she's not quiet because she's peaceful, but because she knows the cost of being honest with you is too high? You say you want her truth. Prove it. Stay grounded when she stops smiling. Stay curious when her eyes go cold. Stay open when the words are sharp, because they might be your last chance to actually know her. Let's talk in the comments. Do you really want her honesty or just the comfort of your illusion? A woman's silence isn't weakness. It's a final warning, one that most men never hear until it's too late. You're looking for a fight, expecting raised voices, accusations, maybe even tears. But she doesn't give you any of that. No warnings, no explosions, just distance. Subtle at first, a shift in her energy, a slower reply, a shorter hug, a colder kiss. You don't notice it because you think silence means peace, but in reality, it's detachment. And when a woman begins to detach, you're already losing her. She no longer reminds you of what you forgot. She stops asking if you're okay. She doesn't check if you've eaten or ask how your day was. She used to fight for your attention. Now she doesn't care if you give it. She's not cruel. She's exhausted. Tired of begging for the bare minimum. Tired of being your emotional caregiver while neglecting her own needs. So she retreats, not to punish you, but to preserve herself. Most men only realize the depth of a woman's love once her presence turns to absence. Once her fire becomes a flicker, and then nothing. And by the time you want to fix it, it's too late. She's already rewritten the story in her heart, the version where she doesn't chase you, where she no longer needs you, where your silence is matched, and then outgrown. You thought silence meant things were fine, that her staying quiet was proof she accepted you as you were. But she wasn't accepting. She was observing, waiting, hoping. And the moment she realized she was more alone with you than without you, she left. Maybe not physically, but emotionally, she's already gone. So don't wait for the door to slam. Pay attention to when she stops knocking. Don't look for the moment she yells. Look for the day she says nothing at all. That's when you've lost her. Not when she leaves, but when she no longer cares whether you follow. Let's open this up. Have you ever seen this silence and misunderstood it as peace? Comment below. Your answer might be the one someone else needs to hear. Let's get brutally honest. If you have to wonder where you stand, you already know. You weren't the priority. You were an option, and people don't protect options. They keep them around just in case their plans fall through, just in case they get bored, just in case the one they really want doesn't show up. And the worst part? You stayed. You settled for crumbs and called it connection. You convinced yourself that their busy meant ambition, that their flakiness was spontaneity, and that their silence was peace. But deep down it was avoidance, indifference, disinterest dressed in politeness. You wanted to be chosen, but you were only ever convenient, available, predictable, and that predictability made you replaceable. Because the truth is, no one forgets their priorities. They make time. They show up. They make you feel like a chapter, not just a footnote in their story. But when you're an option, you're a placeholder, filling the space while they search for something better, newer, or more exciting. And you and your desire to be loved stayed silent. You didn't want to seem needy. You didn't want to ask for too much. But let me tell you, asking to be prioritized is not asking for too much. It's asking for basic respect. And here's where it hurts. When you finally decide to walk away, they won't beg. Because options don't get chased, they get replaced, fast. And then you're left with the brutal clarity that you were never hard to lose, because you were never deeply valued to begin with. That kind of realization doesn't just sting, it shakes your sense of self-worth. But maybe, just maybe, this is the wake-up call you needed. To stop fighting for a place in someone's life when they're not even building space for you. To stop being an option and start being your own priority. Because once you learn your value, you'll never again sit at a table where you're only served when it's convenient. What's your story? Have you ever realized too late that you were just an option? Drop a comment. Someone else out there might see themselves in your words. We've been trained to believe that the loudest voice holds the power, that the one who argues hardest, shouts longest, or dominates the conversation is the one in control. But real power doesn't need a microphone. It knows the strength of silence. Because silence is not submission. It's observation. It's restraint. It's the quiet sharpening of a blade while others waste energy swinging wildly in the dark. You've seen it. The person who stays calm while others spiral. The one who doesn't rush to defend themselves. Who listens more than they speak. Who sits back and watches the room before making a move. That person unnerves people. Not because they're weak, but because they're unreadable. You can't predict silence. You can't manipulate it. And in a world obsessed with attention and reaction, that kind of discipline is terrifying. The loud ones want you to believe they're confident, but often their volume is hiding a fragile ego, desperate to be seen, to be validated. Real confidence has nothing to prove. It doesn't chase approval. It doesn't compete in noise. It sits in the back and sees what everyone else misses. Because silence allows for clarity. And clarity is where real power is born. When you stop reacting, people start to wonder what you're thinking. When you don't explain yourself, others begin to question themselves. Silence shifts the dynamic. Suddenly, you're not just another voice in the chaos. You're the mystery, and mystery is magnetic. So the next time they expect you to argue, stay quiet. When they try to provoke you, smile instead. When they demand your attention, give them your distance. And watch how quickly the balance of power changes. Not every battle deserves your energy. Not every insult deserves a response. Sometimes the most devastating move is to say absolutely nothing. and let your absence, your calm, and your self-control speak for you. Have you ever used silence as a power move? Or maybe you've witnessed someone disarm a room with nothing but calm presence? Share your experience in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear your story. In a world of constant noise where attention is currency and vulnerability is often exploited, silence has become a revolutionary act. The lesson from the story is piercingly clear. The more emotionally available, reactive, and predictable you are, the easier you are to manipulate. In 2025, where digital footprints replace conversations and emotional data becomes algorithmic leverage, protecting your energy is no longer spiritual advice, it's psychological survival. When you stop being available to everyone, emotionally, digitally, mentally, the entire dynamic around you changes. People notice, not because you're gone, but because they can no longer feed on your predictability. This isn't about becoming cold or bitter. It's about becoming sovereign, strategic, selectively silent. The person who no longer reacts, no longer justifies, no longer explains themselves becomes dangerous, not with aggression, but with control. You must pay attention to your patterns. What makes you flinch? What triggers you into over-explaining? Who do you keep chasing even when they drain your peace? Because in 2025, the most effective manipulations don't come from villains. They come from people who smile, mirror your needs, and weaponize your desire for connection. The story reminds us that the most powerful person isn't the one who dominates a room. It's the one who observes in silence, knows their worth, and only speaks when the outcome is worth it. Apply this by learning to hold your no without guilt. Let others wonder. Let them think you've changed. Your silence will expose their intentions. Your unavailability will reveal who only loved your access, not your essence. This year, commit to protecting your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Audit your relationships, your reactions, your online presence. Train yourself to listen without absorbing, to observe without reacting, to be kind but unavailable to chaos. Your clarity, your peace, your power, they're all born in the moment you stop performing and start choosing who gets access. Let 2025 be the year you become unreadable, unshakable, and untouchable. Not by force, but by the elegance of your silence.